Hello, 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 and welcome back to an all new episode here on the Desensitized channel. As always, my name is Darius Cook, joined ever by Dan Cast. What's up?
What is up?
Nothing much, brother. Excited to discuss a new topic with you today. Um, today, we are going to be talking about Invincible. Invincible has its third season out right now, halfway through the season at the recording of this video. And we just wanted to kind of dive in and have a little debate. Uh, this season's been great so far. I don't know about you, but I've been enjoying it a lot. There's been some ups and downs, but I think where we find ourselves at the end of episode 4 is a very engaging and interesting place. But the main topic of this video is to discuss who's in the right, Cecil or Mark. Well, I have a strong opinion on this, but I do kind of want to set the stakes up a
Okay,
little bit
okay.
here.
Sure, sure, sure.
Where we find ourselves within this conflict is essentially Mark found himself in a lose lose situation. All the heroes had been captured and detained by Doc Seismic, and Mark and Eve tried to go save the day, but they found themselves with their back against the ropes, and so Cecil pulled out his last resort, which was involving the Animen. Uh, Unbeknownst to Mark, he's been farming a whole legion of Animen, who's an enemy who he desperately fought against back in season 1. And he employed Darkwing, who we know from season 2 was murdering bad guys as a vigilante in his town. Mark takes great offense to this. Of course, with the Animen, that was something that affects him very personally. And with his no killing policy, he doesn't believe that Darkwing should be rehabilitated or used in any capacity. He thinks these individuals should rot in jail, even though they were used to save his own life in that moment. Of course, this conflict between Mark and Cecil came to a head where he confronted him about it, which resulted in an altercation where Cecil armed more Annie-men to detain Mark and went as far as to use a chip that he was installed into his brain to kind of drive his head crazy and stop him from being able to fight back. Of course, Mark thinks that that's a step too far, and now he's kind of had it with Cecil and doesn't want anything to do with him. He thinks that he's gone too far off the deep end within his control. My initial reaction to it, I got to be honest, I don't see where Mark's coming from. I think Mark is way in the wrong. I'm kind of team Cecil all the way, and I'm not even a little bit like wavering on it. How about you?
Yeah, so personally, I'm on Cecil's side. I think
Mm,
obviously there's moments where maybe he overstepped a little bit and maybe that probably wasn't the best way to deal with the situation and it kind of escalated things more than it probably needed to. Why don't you go first on why you believe Cecil um, is the good guy in this situation?
Okay, so I want to break this down into sections because there's multiple things that are happening here that Mark is taking issue with. So let's just start with the reanimate, right? The choice to not keep the doctor who controlled all these reanimen and made them in the first place, to not just leave him sitting in a jail cell, but to actually use them for this side to create their own army of fighters who can just about rival Viltrumites when they work together. Um, in a vacuum, I understand where Mark is coming from. I understand feeling pissed off about that, especially when he has a close friend who was, even turned into an Animan. So he's feeling personally affected by this. However, it's like he just thinks that this guy should just sit in a jail cell, and I think that's also true. But I don't think that means that he can't also give them some scientific tools that can help our team in the future. There was nothing that Cecil said to imply that this evil scientist is out on the streets just doing whatever he wants to do. It's just that now they're using him in this capacity. If we knew for sure that he was free and just living his life like in an apartment, living it up, maybe I would be more so on Mark's side. But for the information that we have available, I don't think that there's really a main reason to be upset. I'm also assuming that they're using corpses and they're not just killing innocent people to use in this program. But if that was revealed to be the case, then I could see myself re-siding back with Mark.
Sure. With in regards to the Animen, from Mark's perspective especially, like can you really even trust everything Cecil's saying? Like who's to say that these people are truly reformed? Who's to say that he's actually getting these from corpses? it's impossible to know because, quite frankly, Cecil isn't going to tell Mark everything. I mean, Cecil pretends like he's not spying on Mark, but he most definitely is, permanently.
Hmm.
Understandably so. I get it. However, it's hard to tell when he's telling the truth and not, or when he's just trying to diffuse the situation or get you to like turn your back and be like, oh, whatever, okay, screw it. Realistically, I think if he probably knew Mark would have an adverse reaction to the Animen. I'm not sure
Hmm.
why he didn't just inform him. Obviously, he would have had a bad reaction, but it's going to be even worse and increase the distrust when you don't tell him. It's impossible to know if this, like, if they're actually reformed, or if this technique of reforming them is actually working, or if it's just a temporary band-aid, and then now you've given them more of a platform to do wrong if they decide to swap. So, in that sense, and also it seems like Cecil's in total control of them. If anything happens to Cecil in terms of like the him changing his views, they're not really free thinking. So
Sure.
they can totally be weaponized by Cecil. Not saying he's evil or anything, but like if something did happen in that sense, um, that's definitely where maybe I would be thinking if I was Mark.
So this has me thinking that, I think that Cecil is making all the right decisions in terms of his contingency plans. But the one thing I'm not feeling very compelled by is the way that the conflict unfolded between Mark and Cecil. I understand that Mark was escalating things in terms of his aggression. But I also think that Cecil snowballed things way further than they needed to go. At no point do I think that there's a world where even if Mark doesn't get his way, that he kills Cecil in that interaction or even hurts him. He was getting aggressive, and Cecil says, "Oh, you're scaring the shit out of me right now, Mark." Right? And so we're meant to kind of take that point of view. But I guess us knowing Mark, I don't think that that was a moment where he had to fear or needed to engage the chip in his brain to make him go crazy and everything like that. That was just a misuse of his what he had available to him at the time. And I agree, if he was able to let Mark in on this and let him see the reforming process happening before just being surprised by it, I think Mark would be more on board with it. Also, if I was a superhero that existed in this world, like from Mark's point of view, I would not trust Cecil. There's no way I would trust Cecil. Us, the audience, especially getting his backstory, I think we have the privilege of knowing that Cecil is kind of the man. Like he kind of has the right call on these things. But the way that he treats everybody in this world, and especially if I'm Rex Blode and I see him pulling up on Invincible and making him go crazy, I'm absolutely fighting back against him. There's no way I'm letting my boy get controlled like that. Especially at this point, Invincible has not done anything to imply that we can't trust him.
Exactly. And that's why from Mark's POV, I totally get where he's coming from. I mean, obviously, he's making a lot of his decisions based on his personal experiences and emotions. Like, for example, obviously, he's concerned with his family, like anyone else would be. Obviously, Cecil is looking into his family, spying on them, looking at his little brother's progress, and basically trying to. If Cecil had his way, he would be training under Cecil. Clearly, doesn't fucking work because Mark still gets
Hmm.
his ass kicked no matter who he's fighting, but that's besides the point. And obviously, with his best friend, his boyfriend is a previous Animan, so
Mhm.
um, I 100% get where Mark is coming, or yeah, where Mark is coming from with Cecil. His reactions are definitely pretty normal. But yeah, in terms of to kind of hop back on Cecil's side, like there's like a million different universes. Like I don't remember if I'm remembering this correctly, but Mark is like the only good one, right? Of this, like
That's what
he's
they
the only
say,
one
yeah.
good Mark.
In
Um,
every other universe, Mark turned evil because his powers came in earlier, so he didn't get as much of his mother's earthly influence.
yeah. So, and obviously him spying on Mark and everything, like he has to do that just out of an abundance of caution. You've got millions of lives at stake. I totally get where he's saying. Uh, I do think he needs to handle it better. He needs to be a little bit
Hmm.
more upfront with Mark, especially if Mark's going to be the hero of Earth. You need to kind of keep him way more in the loop. I know Mark is young and he's kind of not, he's a lot more emotional, but you have to like put the fire out before, like, you can't just let it just explode out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's better to
Yeah.
deal with a small fire than like a blazing inferno.
Yeah,
And that,
Cecil's great at controlling his company and all, but he needs a human resources agent with him at all times to help him communicate with Mark.
yeah, and also like those dead bodies and stuff like that, like that they're using, are they donated bodies? Are they
Mm,
just picking them up off the street? Are the families giving them
mm.
permission? Like, we just don't have enough information to really have an informed like decision on if this is like morally okay.
It's a
Um,
lot of bodies that seem like young men, like
yeah,
physically capable young men. Like, okay, interesting.
yeah, like
You just had like 40 like 20-year-old guys laying around. Like,
yeah,
what's
like
going on here?
from what we're seeing, like from the information we know, it's hard to really get a gauge on if in the overall thing Cecil's doing what he probably should be doing, but is he doing it in the right way? It's hard to tell. So in that
Mhm.
sense, it's like you can see why Mark is getting how he's getting. It's almost like the way Cecil's going about doing it is almost like creating an evil Mark almost.
Mm,
Now he
yeah.
has no trust for the government or Cecil or anything, and on top of that, he's got the looming Viltrumite threat. He's going through all that bullshit with his dad. Is all these different things. He just had to, spoiler alert, kill Immortal from the future. So
Hmm.
obviously, all these two times where he's had to kill someone weigh heavily on him. He's going through a lot mentally. Last thing you want to do is be hitting him with some crazy surprises. Like, he's just a
Hmm.
ticking time bomb right now.
There's two aspects that make it really hard to be on Mark's side. One, Mark would be dead. Like the whole Earth would be doomed from Doc Seismic if he didn't employ them. So we've already proven that it was a necessary evil for them to even have the conversation after the point, right? So that's already a no-brainer. And we've already established the Viltrumites coming down to Earth is going to be a much larger threat than what they were facing with Doc Seismic. And so for Mark to be refusing any extra help at this stage of the game, he's not aware that there's only so many pure-blooded Viltrumites. From the point of view that he has, Mark should be thankful for this opportunity, frankly. And of course, it gets really annoying when we start looking more at Darkwing, right? Because Darkwing's biggest crime is killing criminals. Okay, I also don't think that we should be killing people. But if we're not killing people, we're just letting them rot in a jail cell. Like ideologically, I do think that it comes hand in hand that if Mark thinks that we shouldn't kill people for doing bad things, that you should rehabilitate them. Otherwise, letting them rot in a jail cell is the more cruel thing to do than ending their life if you don't think that they can be rehabilitated. Mark should be for rehabilitation of criminals. He shouldn't be for just letting them sit in a corner for the rest of their life.
I think sometimes the heroes should kill people. Because quite
Mm,
frankly, for example, let's take Batman. He should have killed the Joker when, like, first chance he had. Because all that's happening is a lot of these big bads, they're gonna break out eventually. Just happens. It's like they can walk in and walk out as they please, and they're just gonna get more people killed. So you kill one person to stop the chance of thousands plus other people dying. So
it's
like
interesting. This is where the debate gets very interesting, doesn't it? I mean, aren't you playing God at that point, though?
that's the problem. It's like it's deciding how you should dictate it. I mean, obviously you're like we should do a legal process, but it seems like these motherfuckers break out whatever the fuck they want. So
Yeah.
at a certain point, you should probably take it into your own hands. But that's like a whole other discussion, really. But like, I don't know. It's tough. The whole thing's like a entire ethical dilemma in like a million different ways. So
Yeah.
it's hard to be like a
No, that
judge.
that is an interesting conversation. I mean, I wasn't directly thinking about the Batman comparison, but I think it's super relevant here because if we're talking about superheroes in this conversation, Batman, like that's what his whole story is about. The fact that he doesn't kill these criminals, they always break out and they cause many more deaths. So yeah, I think that's a very poignant thing to bring up and compare. If I'm Cecil, or if I'm the HR guy, kind of managing between Cecil and Mark, I'm going to establish a three strikes and you're out system at least. If they slip up two more times and have proven themselves incapable of reform, then we kill them.
Yeah,
What do we think?
because people get put on death penalty for way less than like threatening the lives of thousands of people. should probably just get it over with. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
maybe
Hey, if
employ
this was in Florida, this conversation would be a moot point. They'd be dead a long time ago.
just employ one hero to have the axe. Just he does the dirty work. If you intentionally kill the lives of like X amount of people, straight to death. You get executed on the
Mm,
damn spot because clearly
mm.
you're gonna fucking do it again. If they break out and they hurt more people, done. Like at the end of the day, it sounds like really bad, but when you're in a world of superheroes and supervillains that can cause mass harm, you gotta nip things in the bud.
So what do you think about Darkwing? Do you think okay? So two questions with Darkwing, and I did go back and I confirmed kind of what was he really guilty of? Became a vigilante and was killing villains. Now some of them were street level villains. You know, the level of crime can be debated, but that's what he was doing. He was not just killing innocent people. Um, A, do you think that he should be allowed to be reformed? And B, do you think that he should be like included in the Guardians of the Globe? I think that's like kind of maybe a step too far. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think his first introduction, his first introduction back, is him introducing him to the Guardians. Like he's gonna be part of the Guardians. I feel like there should be a like more gradual process to it, but I definitely think he should be able to be reformed. Like I said, like obviously he's killing villains, and he definitely, especially if they're street level villains, like you're just selling drugs or whatever, like you shouldn't just get killed on the spot. Um,
Hmm.
I reserve the killing to people that are like intentionally going out and killing thousands of lives. Cecil's in the right, but his way of going about it is horrible and just causing more
Cecil
problems.
needs to work on his communication.
Yeah,
That's what Cecil needs to do.
yeah,
So this does set up an interesting question though, because and Cecil brings this up as a comparison. If he doesn't think Darkwing should be reformed, yet Mark is having leaving emotional space for his father to be reformed, uh, which is interesting because we know that he essentially killed the population of Chicago. Is like the level of murder that he caused in
yeah.
that one go outing. Not to mention the entire Guardians of the Globe at the time, like a full team of great heroes that would have continued to protect the world. You know, I guess where are you landing in this space of the debate? Is Mark just a complete hypocrite? Is there anything different in that case? Has Omni Man saved so many lives that it kind of the scales balance out? Where are you landing with that?
Yeah, so if you think about it from literally everyone else but Mark's perspective, Omni-Man should be irredeemable. Obviously, we have the information of seeing that he is like kind of changing a tune, and realistically he's gonna be necessary. Even though there's only like 50 Viltrumites, if they all pull up on Earth, like they're cooked. So he's gonna be a necessary asset to have, but in terms of everyone else's eyes, like Mark is most definitely being a hypocrite, and that's what that like Cecil sees it as. Like, oh, like I can, I can't reform these guys, but you believe your father's redeemable. This is crazy. He's being like empathetic with his father, who
Mm,
is a Viltrumite through and through. Like he initially came to Earth to conquer it.
yeah,
So I would be nervous, even more nervous. So
yeah, that really it dismantles Mark's entire platform, right? Like Darkwing killed some criminals. That's all Darkwing did. He killed some criminals. Omni-Man killed Chicago. Like it's not like it completely throws his argument out the window. It's ridiculous.
yeah, but granted, I feel a lot of that goes in with Cecil not telling him and then him just revealing it. And then Mark's like, what the fuck? Like, why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're literally blindsided. And obviously, you get hit with a ton of things at once. You're going to like respond with the same energy. You're going to lash out, like, what the fuck?
Right.
What's going on? In terms of like, if Cecil's like, hey, by the way, I'm starting a reformation program where we're going to reform some of these villains, blah, blah. Maybe Mark would be a little bit more open to it.
Okay, so I have two more points. And one, okay, Cecil completely justified to putting that chip inside of Mark's head
Sure. Yeah.
because, I mean, let's think about this. Omni-Man fought for Earth for 18 years. Cecil had every reason in the world to trust Omni-Man. And then, of course, he turned and destroyed all the Guardians of the Globe and did everything he did and left. So if I'm Cecil, even though I see you as a nice kid and everything, there's no way I could ever fully trust Mark after 18 years spent with Omni Man. you don't even get the benefit of the doubt of the initial 18 years because you were raised by the man who just pulled this Uno reverse card on us. So, like, 100%, like, he should get more chips in his head, if anything. Mark should be signing up to get the chips in his head to make sure that he doesn't become evil, especially after he sees what Immortal became over years. But the other question I'm very curious about, okay, after we saw Cecil's background, right? We see his history with criminals and how he felt about them being reformed at the time and how that's changed. When slash if Omni-Man comes back to Earth to fight for Earth, I want to know. I'm curious what you think. How will Cecil react to that? Because from everything we've seen with Cecil, with Darkwing and the Reaniman, Cecil should be on board with this. He reforms criminals. He doesn't want to put them to waste. But I have a feeling that the betrayal from Omni-Man to Cecil will feel a little bit more personal, and it won't be as easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it's tough, especially with like what's going on with Oliver. Like he just killed a villain, which probably
Yeah.
needed to die. I mean, they've been causing havoc for fucking 2 seasons
I'm gonna
periodically.
miss those Mahler twins. I'm gonna
Yeah,
miss them.
they'll be back. Some sort of multiverse bullshit. I'm sure we'll bring them back.
Sure,
But
sure.
um, yeah, like, and of course Cecil's seeing that, and he's like, "Well, this is dangerous too." Like, obviously, it doesn't seem like Mark and his mom have him like in check on a leash. He's kind of still doing his own thing just because no one can really stop him, really.
Yeah, especially you're right. I wasn't even considering the 411 purple elephant in the room that is Oliver and how much more complicated he makes all of this. He is like a Chekhov's gun, dude. Just his existence in the story adds so much more tension and like fear. I'm terrified of Oliver. I don't know what that kid's gonna do. He's terrifying to me.
Yeah, he seems like he could easily be swayed either way. I mean, he was kind of
Mhm.
sympathizing with his dad
Yeah,
towards the end, so you're like, "Oh, man, this is," and his dad doesn't even feel that way anymore. So it's
yeah.
like dangerous. You're like, "Oh shit, he might just completely flip, go to the Viltrumite Empire, and like Mark's gonna have to fight his own brother at some point."
He's definitely going to become stronger than Mark as far as we can see. I mean, he seems like he's already like Mark season 2 Mark strength.
Yeah, this could be a whole other discussion, but why the fuck does Mark lose every fight ever? And he's supposed to be the strongest, like the savior of Earth, and we see other heroes do more work to villains that just kick
Mhm.
Mark's ass. I don't understand how, like, it doesn't make sense. He loses every fight.
So sometimes Invincible has a bit of a power scaling issue where it seems like we're just going up and down with how strong Mark is supposed to be or how good of a fighter he's supposed to be. It's like we establish these feats that he's capable of doing and then see him get beat by someone who you don't think he should be able to beat. In that seismic episode, like, and understand that we were, as the audience, were meant to believe that him and Eve were really pushed to the extreme and they weren't able to defeat him, but I didn't see any reason why Mark couldn't just fly through them, from the scaling that we've seen in other
Yeah,
fights.
they can they can fly across the globe in seconds.
Right.
Surely you generate enough force to destroy literally anything. Obviously, I'm sure he's holding back as to not kill people, but there's a certain level of holding back where you got to be like give it a little bit more power to put him down. You don't have to kill him, but that's a whole other topic.
That is. Well, we'll save that for the season review of Invincible in a few weeks here.
Yep, and then I think that probably just about wraps it up.
Yeah, that brings it to a close. Mark is a dummy who needs to grow up and get slapped in the face and figure out what's going on here. And Mark is a king who just needs to work on his communication skills.
No.
Cecil. Cecil's a king who needs to work on his communication skills.
But yeah, if you guys have any opinions, definitely drop them down in the comments. We'd love to see them, and we'd love to argue with you. Just kidding, but yeah, definitely catch us on the next one. We'll definitely be covering Invincible as the season goes on. Anyways, anything else to close us out, D?
Yeah, no, if anyone's stupid enough to fight us about, if anyone's Team Mark in the comments, we're definitely going to come for you in the comments. So bring it on. Let's do it.
Alrighty, on that note, we'll see you guys in the next one.